Welcome to Speakeasy Spirits. I hope you're thirsty because by the time we finish today, we will have filled all 8 of these glasses, including the one I'm working on now, with identical whiskey sours, changing only one ingredient in each. We're going to look at egg white and egg white alternatives. A whiskey sour is a pretty simple recipe. It's whiskey, lemon juice, and sweetener. The original recipe also called for egg white. Nowadays, a lot of people don't want egg white in their cocktails. A lot of bars will serve it without the egg white, but there are also a lot of egg white alternatives now. So we're going to take a look at what our options are and see how we can create this nice head of foam on our whiskey sours. This one I have will be our baseline. It's 2 ounces of bourbon, 1 ounce of lemon juice, and 2/3 of an ounce of simple syrup. It also includes half an ounce of egg white. The egg white adds this foam on top. It also creates a creamier, richer texture to the cocktail. This one's using frozen egg white. A few weeks ago, I made some homemade ice cream. It called for some egg yolks, so I separated out the whites, froze them, and we're using one of those today. We're going to make 6 of these to the exact same spec as the first one, only swapping out the one additional ingredient. We'll be using fresh egg, bottled egg whites, Fee foam. This is a all-natural vegan foaming agent. Aquafaba, also known as the water from a can of Garbanzo beans. And we'll be trying out 2 mixes. This Fee Brothers mix and this powdered mix. Let's start with the one I'll probably regret most, the powdered whiskey sour. Now the recipe calls for 1.5 ounces of bourbon, 1.5 ounces of cold water. That really feels like a shame to have diluted good whiskey. The contents of the powder packet. Add ice. And shake. Now when you're shaking anything that foams, you want to make sure you've got a good grip on both sides. The foam will expand and it can push the tins apart. We'll strain that into our glass, which already has an ice cube in it. There you have a powdered whiskey sour mix. So already you can see a little bit of foam, but not a lot. It's sour, but I can't identify it as lemon. It's more like somebody dissolved some Sour Patch Kids in some bourbon, which doesn't sound like a bad idea until you taste it. All you really get from this is just sour, artificial lemon. It doesn't have the creamy, rich texture that the egg white gives it. It's very simple and one note. It's not a good whiskey sour. All right, let's try the next contender. This Fee Brothers Whiskey Sour Cocktail Mix. Now I use Fee Brothers products. I do have their Fee foam, I like that. And I use some of their bitters. They're good. So maybe there's a chance this will be okay. Now this recipe calls for half an ounce of mix and 1 ounce of bourbon. It seems like a little too little mix, but let's find out. All right, this one used fewer ingredients, so there's definitely less cocktail here than the last 2. There is pretty much no foam. I was kind of hoping that this would use what they use in the Fee foam to make a good head on it, but it doesn't seem to be getting it. Unfortunately, I have to give this one a pass, Fee Brothers. It's watered down. There's a hint of lemon, but it's not that pure lemon juice flavor. I don't really get any of the bourbon notes. It's not as sour as the powdered mix was, but it's also not lemony. Like a lot of mixes, they probably can't use real fruit juice. It wouldn't be shelf stable. So you get what you get. Again, this is a simple recipe. Skip the mixes, skip the powders, just get some lemon juice. Even if it's bottled lemon juice, it'll be 10 times better than this. Let's move on to the real ingredients. I've already poured 1 ounce of lemon juice, 2 ounces of bourbon, and 2/3 of an ounce of simple syrup into each of these glasses. Now to these, we'll add our egg white alternatives. We'll start with the garbanzo beans. I know it sounds weird, but this actually does work and is used in a lot of bars and restaurants. So we'll just strain off the garbanzo bean water through a fine mesh strainer. That should be enough. And we'll use 1/2 ounce of this over here. And in this tin, we're going to use Fee Foam. This is an all-natural vegan foaming agent. And we'll just put 3 dashes of that in. Now we're going to do a technique called dry shaking. Whenever you want a good foam on your cocktails, do a dry shake. One thing keep in mind, hold these together tightly because they can separate. The vacuum of the ice cube creates a seal. Without ice in there, they could separate. Now we'll add some ice and we'll shake them each again. And here is our Fee Foam whiskey sour. You can see that's got a lot of aeration. There's a good amount of foam there with just 3 dashes of the Fee Foam. And here is our Aquafaba whiskey sour. So before we drink these as a garnish, let's do a few drops of Angostura bitters. And that should sit nicely on top of the foam. With the Fee Foam, you can see we've got a good 1/2 inch of foam, and it's still continuing to settle out. The foam will continue to grow as it sits. I can't smell anything except lemon juice and bourbon. Let's taste them and see. Now with the Fee Foam, that tastes just like the egg white one. It's got a very similar texture to it. It's got the sharp bite of the lemon, just enough sweetness, but it is a sour, so you don't want it too sweet. You can taste the bourbon notes in there. There's definitely nothing off or strange about it. Now they say Aquafaba, the water off of garbanzo beans, is tasteless and odorless, but this definitely tastes different than that one. There's something in the background of this one. It's not exactly a vegetable note. It doesn't taste like garbanzo beans or hummus or anything, but it's there, and you know it's there. And I'm not sure I like that. Let's move on to our last test. Grocery store bottled egg whites. Now this will use 2 ounces of bourbon. We're going to change out the simple syrup for some real Vermont maple syrup. 2/3 of an ounce. And 1 ounce of lemon juice. Whenever I'm using a thick syrup, I like to follow it up with the juice to wash out the container. Make sure you get all of it out of there. And half an ounce of egg white. We'll start with a dry shake. Add some ice. And shake it again. We'll strain that over ice. This time, instead of Angostura bitters, let's use 3 dashes of the black walnut bitters. You can always swap out the sweetener you use, maple syrup, simple syrup, a brown sugar syrup, or orgeat, whatever you feel like. All right, the foam's starting to settle at the top. We've got a pretty good head. I'd say that's as good as our original egg white cocktail. On the taste, the lemon has a sharp bite, rounded off by the maple notes. It's pretty interesting the way this one evolves. At first, you just get hit with the tartness of the lemon, some of the bourbon notes. The bourbon and the maple play well together. The lemon and the maple play well together. So it evolves over time. The addition of the black walnut bitters rounds it out, adds a little bite to that maple note. It's a very good whiskey sour. So now that we've tried everything, let's see if we can take the best of these, put it together to make our own Speakeasy whiskey sour. For our Speakeasy whiskey sour, our sweetener is going to be Oleo Saccharum, which translates into basically oil sugar. We're going to use the peel of the lemon, pull the oils out of it with sugar, and that'll make a simple syrup that's super lemony, has a rich mouthfeel. It's going to be really good. Now to make an Oleo Saccharum, you're going to need to completely peel some lemons. A vegetable peeler will do the job, and you're going to want to just strip them down and put all the peels into a mason jar, Tupperware, some kind of container that can be sealed. You don't want to cut too deep, leave the white on the lemon. You really just want that outside layer of peel. So you can see there's the peel of 1 lemon. Now to that, you typically add 3/4 of an ounce to 1 ounce of sugar, but since lemons are all different sizes, kind of play it by ear. You want to add just enough sugar to coat the lemon peel and seal it up. Now ideally, you're going to want to use the peels of about a dozen lemons because you don't get a whole lot out of this. Now you want to let this sit for 2 to 6 hours and you'll get a pool of oil at the bottom. You don't want to go too long after 6 hours because it might start to pull some of the bitterness out of the peel. And what you finish with is this. This is our Oleo Saccharum. It is just lemon oil and sugar. Now we'll take our naked lemon and juice it. And that's how I got this bottle of juice. If you're going to make Oleo Saccharum, you'll probably want to start about a day early like I did. Save your juice, use this in your cocktails the next day, and you'll have your Oleo Saccharum ready to go. Oleo Saccharum was used in a lot of punch recipes back in the 1800s and early 1900s. It's kind of disappeared. You don't see it in a lot of recipes now. Not a lot of bars use it, but it's definitely a fantastic ingredient if you feel like making it at home. Now, since this is the Speakeasy version of this recipe, we're going to do things a little different. We're going to start with 2 ounces of scotch. I'm using this blended scotch. It's Monkey Shoulder. This is a blend of several big name scotches out of major distilleries in Scotland. We'll go with 3/4 of an ounce of the lemon juice. We're cutting back on this a little bit because the Oleo Saccharum itself is going to have quite a bit of lemon flavor. And then our Oleo Saccharum, we'll also use 3/4 of an ounce. Now for our foam, we're going to use a fresh egg. Separate out the yolk and the white. You don't want to do this directly over your tin because you do not want to spill any of that yolk in there. If you get any yolk in there, you're not going to get foam. Then we'll need a 1/2 ounce of the fresh egg white. We'll add that right in. And we're going to add 3 dashes of black walnut bitters. We'll start with a dry shake. Add our ice. And shake it again. We'll strain that over 1 cube of ice. We'll garnish with a slice of lemon. You get a little bit of the smokiness of the Scotch. There's an herbal note from the Peychaud's and the black walnut bitters. The tartness is there. This one feels a lot richer than the other ones. It's just got more texture to it. It's probably because of the Oleo Saccharum. That lemon oil adds some extra body. The egg white gives it that rich texture. It's got a nice creamy foam on top. All in all, an excellent whiskey sour, but you really can't go wrong with any of the ones that used fresh ingredients, except for the Garbanzo beans. I don't think it's for me. So how would I rank all of these? First, we can eliminate the mixes. I would also never use the Garbanzo beans again. I know a lot of people swear by it, but a lot of people can still be wrong. It just had an off taste and smell that threw off the whole cocktail. Now all 3 versions of the egg, fresh egg whites, frozen egg whites, and our store-bought egg whites, all came out pretty much identical. I could tell no difference in the amount of foam, in the flavor, or the texture of the cocktail. If you want to put on a big show and impress somebody, I'd go for the fresh egg. There's nothing like cracking and separating a fresh egg there as you're making the cocktail. The liquid egg white had less mess and was easier to measure than the fresh egg white. And of course, the frozen egg white, I just had to drop it into the glass. So what I'm probably going to do with the rest of the liquid egg white is measure it into 1/2 ounce portions, put it in an ice cube tray, and freeze it for use later. It should last for several months frozen. So if I ever want a real egg white cocktail, all I'll need to do is take one of those cubes, drop it into my tin, muddle it a bit to break it up. Once I add my spirits and give it a shake, it'll be completely incorporated into the cocktail. If you want a vegan option, or you just don't like the idea of eggs in your cocktail, or you don't want the mess, then the fee foam is probably the way to go. Being shelf stable, it could just sit at room temperature on your bar, in your liquor cabinet. It'll be good for months, maybe longer. Since you only need 2 to 3 dashes per cocktail, at around $7 a bottle, this is going to last you a very long time and make you a lot of cocktails. It foamed almost as good as the egg white. It didn't quite give it that same silky texture, but for the sheer convenience of it, I don't think this can be beat. I'll put a link down in the description to the best price I've found this online if you want to try it. If you're looking for some good tools for your bar, I've got links in the description to all of the tools I use. These are all high quality. By using those links, you'll help the channel out, you'll get to find some really good quality equipment, and it doesn't cost you anything. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.